Hello everyone, oh my god. So I was just recording the first version of this video when a snake appeared out of nowhere. And ironically, I was speaking about, going back to this more natural way of living and aligning our bodies with our natural environment. And here it was. And I was like, well, that's not what I was expecting or referring to, but I guess snakes are also part of our natural environment. So it's Bella from Miami. It's getting hot, so snakes, I guess, are okay and part of the deal. But what I wanted to talk about today is specifically this, how our bodies were designed by certain factors in the environment in which our ancestors were created. And that created a set of wirings and the way that our body works. And now we're living in a completely different environment, obviously, except that our body still works in the same way, and how that has created all these misalignments. And I'm a true believer that our mental, physical, emotional ailments come from that misalignment. And if we can correct that, we can really resolve many of the issues that we're facing as individuals and as societies. Even this general dissatisfaction and lack of purpose that we feel is correct in when we align with the way that our bodies were supposed to work. In today's video, we're going to talk about sex and sexuality, and later we'll talk about other subjects, but not in a way that sex is taken so out of context in the modern, dialogue that we have about it. Sexuality is the innermost part of ourselves that we really need to connect to really perceive the world the way that we were supposed to. And it's the foundation of our health and well-being that kind of was taken out. And it has, on the one hand, become very taboo, so we're not supposed to talk about it, but it's everywhere. So it's created this disconnect. Not only we have that disconnect, we also have the disconnect around, promiscuity and monogamy, the, saint and the slut, what sexuality looks like prior to marriage and what sexuality looks like afterwards. And all of those models are completely misaligned from the way that our body actually works. So sexuality is actually this innermost part of how we relate to our world, right? It does not only have to do with sex. It's a filter through which we perceive the world. And when we are with that energy turned on, the sexual energy, which in ancient Chinese and Indian traditions, that energy is one that's the same as our vital energy. So when you have that vital energy flowing within you, you see the world in colored ways, not black and white. You see the world as three-dimensional instead of two-dimensional. And that makes all the difference in the world, in the way that you feel and the way that you relate to others, and in how you go about fulfilling your purpose in life. So when I was a teenager, I remember my mom telling me an advice that I was like, wow, most people receive a completely opposite, which is don't have sex before you get married. Mine was the opposite. Don't get married before you have sex, to really understand if that partner is right for you. And at the time, I just thought of it as a very cool advice, but in reality, it's much more profound than that. And that, as much as we like to think of our conscious choices in selecting our partners, and then later when we have problems, as much as we like to blame our partner for him doing that and us doing this, in reality, this sexual chemistry is the foundation and kind of half of, if not more, of what makes and breaks our relationships. So the way that we select our partners is based on a very primitive part of our brain and our pheromones. So it's when you are in your ovulation, right? You are attracted to men that are the most opposite from you genetically, so that you can create the most viable offspring. Guess what? Most women nowadays take birth control pills, and that mimics the state of when we are pregnant. Guess what? When we're pregnant, we're not supposed to be attracted to men at all. Actually, we're supposed to be attracted to our kins and crave this stability. And so most women end up finding their partner on the pill, have kids, and then they get off the pill and are like, oh wow, this is not at all who I'm attracted to. So one way in which this misalignment was created. Another thing is that in a natural environment, our ancestors were programmed to constantly think about sex and sexuality unless there was danger. So sex and sexuality actually related to this state of relaxation, and it's what we were supposed to think about it when we had other needs met, food, security, and things like that. Then our mind was supposed to constantly perceive opportunities for finding the partners and procreation. That was the normal thing to do. Our bodies still work in that way. So if we deny that simply without actually doing anything about it, we end up creating blocks and not allowing the energy to flow in the way that we're supposed to. So, for example, once we get married, we're told that we're not supposed to see other people as attractive. And when you turn that part of yourself off, you're turning it off altogether, not just for others, but for your partner and for yourself. And so that energy becomes stifled. And because it is our vital energy, you can see how that can create a lot of the blockages in the body. The other part is true too. Pre-marriage, or even, sometimes we see more and more this open relationships and this trend towards promiscuity. That is also not what our bodies are craving, actually. It wasn't really about quantity, it was about quality. So yes, we had much more sexual interactions back in the day, but it was more about this in-depth connection rather than the amount of partners that you had. And guess what? We don't learn about quality at all. We don't learn ways in which we can really cultivate the sexual energy in us, and cultivate it between our partners, and how we can really create more profound experiences within these interactions. And what happens is that our bodies are supposed to receive a certain amount. There's like a set for a certain amount of stimulation. When we don't receive it, we end up craving that, and we start seeking it from other places. So we create these addictions, either sexually or through whatever, eating more food, buying things. Like, all of those things are for us to instantaneously give us that feel-good feeling, which we were supposed to derive naturally. What has also happened in our society, not only is our body misaligned from its natural way of being, but our mind is hijacked by all these different informations throwing at us, and we actually receive all this stimulation. So our minds are overstimulated by all the sexual images in this case. And hormonally, our endocrine system works in a way that if we are stimulated in the mind, we're supposed to be stimulated in the body too. That's how our bodies were designed. But nowadays, we only receive the mental stimulation, the visual stimulation, but we don't actually feel it in our body. Our bodies don't follow, so to speak, and that creates this misalignment where we're overstimulated here, we're understimulated in the body, and that creates this disequilibrium hormonally, emotionally and then physically. There's a lot of studies actually now showing that this connection to sexuality, sex in itself, work as the same way or more powerfully than some of the strongest medications that we have for anxiety, for depression, and for other mental ailments that we're experiencing as a society. So the way that we recreate this alignment is not by going back to the cave, as I say always. It's really by understanding how our body works, connecting with that energy and finding an outlet for it. It doesn't always have to be a sexual outlet. This energy can be used for connecting to our spiritual development. It can be used for creativity, and that's the energy that we want to be cultivating at all times. It's not stifling it and saying, I'm not supposed to do this, so I'm not going to feel it. It's saying, I'm going to connect to this energy and cultivate it, and then I will find a way to direct that in the right direction. So this was the first video. Let's comment what you think about it, if you connect to it at all. And next time we'll be talking about some other ways in which our body is misaligned and how we can realign it to its natural way through the method that I've created that I call the sensefulness method. Thanks for listening and have a great day.